Welcome, welcome, everyone. Come on in. Excited to get started this evening. And so far, so good with the Zoho suite for those of you who weren't with us last week, or for those who signed up in between or didn't get if you were with us last week but didn't get a chance to watch the replay. The replay will be up for a little bit longer, partially because I haven't taken it down yet, but you're welcome. My slowness is your gain, but come on in. We're testing out new features. So I'm on this platform called Zoho. It's all the rage. I actually really like it. Every single application, from sending campaigns to creating forms to creating a webinar experience, to have a meeting, to schedule events and meetings, all of it is in one suite, but it takes a little while to learn something new. So I thank you for your space and your grace. I think this week we have the actual chat. You can always leave a Q&A. So why don't we just test it out? Oh, someone can't hear. I don't know what that's about. Let's see. Oh, no, can you all hear me? Drop a +1 in the chat, because I see a Q&A. Let's see here. I see a chat received. Yes. Hey, okay. Oh, and the chat is working. Look at God. Do you see this, everyone? Anthony, Bronson, Sylvia, all the folks. I can't even go down all the list, but I'm excited for many reasons that I'll get into. But one is really fascinating that we're talking about trust and estates tonight. And interestingly, when I graduated from Howard Law School back in the before times, and I clerked in the Third Circuit after that, but my first big law job was at then Drigger, Biddle and Reith. I think they have a different name now. And then Pepperell Hamilton, two multinational firms, in their trust and estates department. And so it's really interesting that my life has come full circle to not only, but most of my career has been spent with intellectual property. And I did a lot of planning when I was in private practice on my own, and also with my mother, who was a retired patent attorney. So I focused mostly on copyright and trademarks. She did trademarks and patents, and we had a nice little thing going, nice little family business. But it's really interesting to see kind of the intersection of trust and estates, certainly a lot of the corporate stuff, intellectual property, and now digital assets in this world as well. I'm going to share this is a link to tonight's worksheet. I will also, after this, after our session, add it to the resource page. I want to drop the link to the resource page now as it is. You should have received it in an email, but let's just make sure that everybody has everything. Actually, I'm going to share some of the other stuff at the end, and certainly the link that you can go to in order to access the resource page. I think we have it set up now that once new people register, they're automatically taken to that space. But for the early birds, you may not have gotten that, but I'm going to include that in all future emails to make sure you have it. All right, so if you have any questions along the way, obviously you all have found your way to the chat feature. I'm good and chatty. I don't have two screens up with me now because I'm still in transition with my move. But so I won't always have an eye on the chat, but I encourage you not only, to share where you're from, or if I ask a question, get, very chatty in the chat, because I think that makes for a great experience for you all as well. At the end of this webinar series, I will have an actual Q&A and kind of a VIP session, where that would be the opportunity to go from webinar to the meeting format. It's a little more intimate, of course, to answer questions in that way. So while you are certainly welcome to drop questions, and when I see them, I'll answer as many as I can within the hour that we have. You're always free to reply to any email that you receive from me or my team, and I'll follow up that way as well. And if it's something that I think would be for the good or the benefit of the group, I will even add it to the resource page or give you a shout out. All right. So if you're with me and you're in a quiet place or a semi-quiet place, drop a +1 in the chat and let's get ready to grow. I have a ton of information here. And I'm also gonna, I write for Forbes, and I have a weekly segment on a SiriusXM podcast called Financially Speaking. You don't have to have Sirius in order to access it. You can get it wherever you listen to podcasts. That information is on the resource page as well. And I just want to provide so many, many different opportunities leading to the same result, that you are empowered, that I leave you better than I found you, and that you have found a safe space where there's not a person trying to sell you a token or a project. You're welcome to buy my book, but that's about it. If you want to work with me in consulting, and at the VIP session, we'll talk more about that. I'm working with 5 people over the summer to go really in depth with professionals in particular from finance or law or executives or nonprofits, someone, in leadership that's trying to figure out how to pivot in this Web3 economy. And my gift, my love offering to you all is certainly this free programming during Financial Literacy Month. I think it's so important. And there's so many carnival barkers and naysayers, and I'm going to shoot straight, no chaser. Let's get this information. And so I'm sharing my screen. And this is an interesting setup because I can't exactly see my slide. So I hope you all can. Let me switch around so that I can actually see as well. All right, here we go. All right, so taking a look back at session 1, we talked generally about why this moment matters. And what I meant by that is we are in the midst of a new administration. I think only 87 or 88 days have passed. We've not even made it to day 100 yet. And there has been more change in policies and bills that have made their way on a bipartisan basis through both chambers of Congress. More has happened in that period of time for the digital asset space than really in the entirety that I've been in space. And I got in 2017. Maybe like you, I don't know about this magic internet money. I like the almighty dollar, and that hasn't changed. I don't understand what it is, where it is, who created it, and I'm not interested. I'm also, licensed to practice law since 1998 in 4 states, 3 of them in 1998, 2 in 1998, 1 in 1999, and New York in 2005. I worked my fill in the blank off to get it. I believe it takes a lifetime to build a reputation that you can be proud of when you take your last breath, and an instant to ruin it. And that is across the board, I think even more so in crypto. And so I've often found people who relate to my experience where my rabbit hole moment, meaning my entry point to really learning more about the space, was figuring out back in 2017 why this matters for me. And that's how I kind of set the stage last week for why this should matter to us now. Why it mattered to me in 2017, although I couldn't fully appreciate the reason that cryptographically secure digital assets, meaning encrypted digital assets that aren't just about like peer-to-peer file sharing. Shout out to my Gen Xers and my elder millennials back in the day of P2P file sharing, peer-to-peer file sharing. Now we're kind of using that, we're using that same technology, not just to transfer information, but now value. And when I sat in that in 2017, leading up to 2018, and really understanding what that meant at the intersection of intellectual property and this new technology, that's really what I write, speak, and teach about, the intersection of intellectual property and new technology. So the new kid on the block at the time was Bitcoin. And Ether had just come on the scene with the gangster lean as well. It was kind of in the midst of the ICO boom and bust. ICO stands for initial coin offering. It mattered to me not about investment at the time, but because I was a tenured professor and in charge of these amazing these bright legal minds, that I had a responsibility to learn as much as I could and to give that to the next generation of leaders and lawyers. And so I kind of find myself in the same position now, because many financial professionals in particular, but also attorneys and executives, leaders, small business owners, had the luxury to say, it looks like a scam, it looks like a fad, it looks like it's only for crypto bros, it's bad for the environment, all of the things that I also believed and understood that kept me from even learning in the beginning. And I encourage you, and if you're here with me now, so you're already open to this learning, figuring out why this matters, what digital assets are really, and we talked about that last time, what has changed, particularly from the previous administration to now. The last administration was quite anti-crypto, and the crypto industry poured a ton of money into the last election to literally change political power. Not so much focused on the externalities, the impact to everything else but crypto. And in fact, most of the money didn't go to educating people about crypto. It came, it was invested to make sure that certain, parties were unseated and that there was a pro-crypto focus. And we're seeing that on a bipartisan basis because now it is not politically sound to have a complete anti-crypto policy. So that's some of the stuff that you'll see. I write much more about this at Forbes. So you can go to Forbes.com, search my name and see all of the articles. I think we also put that on the resource page. The final thing about session one, we talked at a very high level about some of the biggest legal changes regarding the SEC, a little bit about the CFTC there, about the Department of Justice, about the executive orders that have come down as well. Next week on my Confidently Crypto podcast, Mondays, it hits every Monday around 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm actually going to talk about something called BIT bonds, BIT bonds, and they would be Bitcoin-backed treasury bonds. This is picking up steam. You may not have heard people talk about it recently. I'm going to write about it. A few people have written about it, but there's so much to change. There are Bitcoin exchange traded funds. There are Bitcoin IRAs. There's a lot to think about. And so that kind of led to where we are now for planning for a crypto estate. All right. So let me pause 1 second and go back to 1 sec. All right, excellent. Dr. Ronellis, excuse me. Welcome. Hey, Langston, Chris, good to see you all as well. All right, I was just checking to make sure that you're still here. All right, so let's press on. Let's get into it. Now, why estate planning is broken for crypto. And when I talk about estate planning, although I don't have a slide here, and if you have any questions more generally about what estate planning is, let me just kind of talk at a very high level. We're talking about the documents, or in absence of the documents, the laws that will be in place to pay your last debts and to distribute your property after death. So estate planning is leading up to that. It's often about deferring taxes to the last minute or to the next generation. It also, if nothing else, a lot of people say, well, I don't have a lot, so what difference does it make? Maybe it keeps 17 people from fighting about $17. We've all seen that. Certainly about leaving instructions about what to do with you and your property. And not all property is created equally. You have physical property, you have intellectual property, you have the difference between personal property, either tangible, physical, or intangible, like intellectual property. You have real estate, land, business, the buildings and structures on top of land. You can have business assets, you can have intellectual property assets. You can also have crypto assets. And crypto is also not a monolith. You could have native coins like Bitcoin or Ethereum or other tokens. When I say the difference between coins and tokens, tokens are projects or digital assets that don't have their own blockchain. And so they write their transactional information to existing blockchains. Not everybody makes that distinction, but technically that is the distinction. So don't get too caught up in that. But when I say the difference between a native coin for a blockchain versus a token, that's what I mean. You could have non-fungible tokens. So the NFTs that we heard about, during the pandemonium, there's a lot of talk about art and non-fungible tokens. The relationship between the token and the actual creativity was really the rough analogy is like having a deed to a home and the home. So a lot of people said, well, what's the point of having a digital art when I could just look at it on the internet? It's like, yeah, you could drive by $1 billion property and look at it too, or you could own it. So like the choice is yours, but I digress. You can have a stable coin. Stablecoin legislation is moved through both parts of Congress, both out of the House, both chambers, excuse me, of the House and the Senate. So we have the Stable and the Genius Acts. See what they did right there? So the resulting combination of the two is the Stable Genius Act, which is going forward. So traditional wills that give instructions about what to do, trusts that provide ownership and management of assets, either for a short period of time or a long period of time. And there's some other documents as well. But traditional tools alone, without specific language about crypto, beyond just saying granny died with, well, maybe grandson died with crypto. Okay, that's not enough. Where is it? What type is it? Where's the wallet? What type of wallet was it held in? This is not something where you necessarily go to a safe deposit box. You might have the hardware there, but if you don't have the instructions about how to manage it, and I found this a lot with intellectual property as well. When I was writing up documents, we would oftentimes have several trustees, like probably a family member and a corporate trustee if there was a sufficient amount of assets. And in addition to that, a separate trustee that just dealt with the management, the protection, the leveraging of intellectual property specifically. And I'm leaning into advising trust advisors, lawyers, and trust and estates work to consider that as well. There's so much crypto that is lost to poor key management or no plan at all. So again, the idea of managing the secret keys or in addition to that, the seed words that set up wallets. And some of this information is going to be bouncing off of your heads as I'm saying it out loud. I'm in my follow-up to you after this. I'm going to send some links out so that you can get more information about this. But I've done a lot of videos on seed words and phrases and how to protect your assets on my video library channel. So I gave you that link at the resource page, and definitely go there and find out more information about keys, et cetera, et cetera. Final thing on this slide, and we'll move on, is just that heirs often don't know what crypto is or how to access it. And that is deeply problematic and ties into poor key management or some user failure or lack of access. And that's before the scammers come a scamming. And so think about it. If you hold or your clients hold crypto assets, would your or their heirs know what to do if the person who set up the wallet is no longer here, right? And so here are the 5 mistakes when I think about the mistakes that are often made. One is this no private key management plan. So the principle of not your keys, not your crypto is painfully true when someone dies without securing their private keys or their seed phrase. Private keys or seed phrase. Write these things down if you don't know what they mean. That will be your homework when I send you some additional information after. And unlike traditional accounts, crypto lacks a password reset. That's the whole point, to have self-sovereign ownership of and control over your own assets. It's a complete mind shift in the relationship that we have to have or should have with our assets. 1 second, because I hear my neighbors, darling children outside. So hold on 1 second. All right. That's when you know I really don't have a green screen, because this is live, not Memorex for the Gen Xers in the room. All right. So unlike traditional accounts, I think that's where I was, there's no password reset. And so if the crypto holder, now the decedent, the dearly departed, is the only person who knows where the keys are or how to interpret them, the wealth is gone forever. And so all of the planning that's done and all the stack sats and, diamond hands till the end, you can't take it with you. And if they can't access it, it's gone forever. And millions upon millions in the value of Bitcoin have already been lost. And I don't want that to be you or your clients for sure. Number two, the second mistake is relying on centralized exchanges, relying solely on centralized exchanges. Ask anybody who held their assets on the FTX exchange. And when I say centralized, I mean basically you are transferring assets or purchasing assets on a platform where you can't direct the outcome. It's basically like an IOU. It's the Coinbases and Geminis and the Krakens. They're all great exchanges, but they're all great exchanges, period. And not FTX, not UFTX, right? Sam Bankman-Fried, look it up if you're not familiar. But the idea that you have some assets and you transfer them onto or into an account or a wallet address within the control of someone else on an IOU basis. And you're kind of crossing your fingers and you say, I'm placing my Bitcoin or my money, my fiat, my government issued money, my tokens onto this exchange. And it is an exchange, not a bank. So I'm putting it here so that I can exchange this currency for something else or this asset for something else. And when I get to something else, I'm out. That is the process of using exchanges. I can't remember the name of the webinar. I think it's like Secure or something like that. I love a good acronym. So if you go on the YouTube channel and look through the video library, when I talk about this, the difference between a centralized exchange and a decentralized exchange where you manage and control your private keys and your wallet at all times. If you rely solely on exchanges, if the light goes out at that exchange, so does your access. This is what happened to FTX, for example, and a lot of others who get their assets locked or lost on a centralized exchange, and that is very damaging. So you definitely also want to name the exchange accounts in a trust on a schedule of some sort, or use some type of payable on death features where supported. That can be essential as well. But keep in mind, a lot of these exchanges, it's not exactly clear where they all are. The regulations are becoming far more robust so that there's greater protection in the United States, but time will tell. The point of this is an exchange, not a bank. You'll get a lot of offers to get some type of return for parking your assets there. And I don't disagree with that. That's not legal or financial advice, but I want you to do it knowing what you are doing and knowing that your assets are at greater risks when they are out of your control. And what others have found is if the central exchange goes down and you have a class action suit to try and get your money back, oftentimes you'll get what you lost, but not the appreciation that you may have experienced, but for the loss. And a lot of people learn that the hard way. So keep that in mind as well. 3, and this should be 1, particularly this week, ignoring the IRS or not doing tax basis tracking. This is critically important as well. And in my follow-up, what I use and recommend to the students who are in From Cash to Crypto, a program that you're more than welcome to join on demand. You can move through at your own pace. And you could do, if you sat down from beginning to end with the new version of From Cash to Crypto, you could do that in about 2 to 3 hours. Obviously, this is meant to experience over time. You have lifetime access. But the students use Coin Tracker. There are a number of different ones as well, and all great. Many of them also integrate with software like TurboTax, et cetera. Many CPAs are starting to get more familiar with this as well. But I'm going to tell you what, if you don't have a CPA who knows about crypto assets or which forms they should expect or how to enter the information, or the fact that in the first third, for those who recently filed your returns, the top third of the 1040, there is like your name, your address, do you have crypto? Did you buy crypto? And oh, by the way, who are your dependents? Like the answer to that check the box question is actually evidently more important than your dependents. And don't believe the hype about, the IRS going away one day soon, although I see what activity Doge has been involved in. You take care of yourself. You pay every cent, not one penny more, but you pay every last cent. So ignoring that can get you in a load of trouble. And omitting crypto from the estate documents. You want to expressly, or let me get at it this way. If the crypto assets aren't clearly identified, they might be missed entirely. And I remember where, in my early years as an estate planning attorney, one of the biggest ways and most important ways to identify the assets of a decedent or other commitment, the debts and the liabilities in addition to the assets, you monitor the mail for a few months. And eventually every statement, or, oh, you didn't pay this mortgage, or, oh, here's your dividend, or all of those things would come through the mail. That is, I can't remember the last time I really looked hard at the mail. And that can be problematic because most people are receiving paperless statements. I love trees, but I also, I love trees, period. And also you want to make sure that you are managing this information in a way that someone can have access in the case that you're not here or for your clients. And so that's critically important, making sure that there's some type of digital asset memorandum or dedicated schedule in these documents to help ensure that the holdings are accounted for and properly distributed as per the decedent's wishes. And then 5, appointing, again, a crypto literate executor. And I would also add a trustee. So at a bare minimum, the executor is the person or the entity that settles all the debts, notifies all the beneficiaries, and makes sure that everything is paid for and paid out. After that, or in conjunction with that, there can also be a trust. A trustee manages the assets that are retitled in the name of the trust and held for the benefit of beneficiaries. You have like the principle of it, but also if it's managed, it could be real estate, it could be stocks, it could be crypto, then also some type of additional return on the appreciation, maybe there's some dividends, et cetera, et cetera. The products are getting more sophisticated now, so that's very, very important. And so hopefully I'm helping you understand and making the case that professionals in particular cannot afford to wait. And if you are thinking, oh, dear God, I've got to get in touch with someone and have this conversation, start having those conversations now as a holder or someone in your family, or if you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your assets or those of your clients. How do you engage them? What conversations do you have? What type of internal continuing education as well? What type of outward facing advertising and value add to clients are you building, where you're going to have sessions? Bring someone like me in. I love doing that. Come in for an hour or two on site or via webinar to kind of talk through internally, and a value add for clients is really, really great. You're talking about the risk of losing high value clients. I just participated or did a presentation, I think it's 3 weeks ago now, for the trust advisors. And there were like over 80 folks on that webinar, and they were all terrified of losing high value clients. During the former administration, there was the prudential regulators, those that regulate banking, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, kind of the Treasury, and other agencies like that as well, specifically focused in banking. And there was a lot going on behind the scenes to say, don't touch crypto with a 10-foot pole. And so the great majority did not. The big company, the big banks, they would have an outward face, but internally they were filing patents for blockchain technology. They were offering advice, counsel, and whatever they could offer for their high net worth individuals. They were talking through custody issues, custodying assets on behalf of their clients, which was very difficult to do before this administration. With a stroke of a Sharpie, that's all DOA. And now banks are not only not prohibited from custodying on behalf of their clients, but also certainly encouraged to. I think, like law, banking and finance is very slow to change, not on the securities and high risk side, but on this side, that you don't want to be the first one in, because a lot of banks in like 2022 were starting to move forward with external products only to kind of get slapped down when the changes were made by President Biden. So the growing exposure to malpractice claims can certainly happen. If you know nothing, that might be better than knowing enough to be dangerous. You all, if you're a legal or financial professional, you spend all of this time and money to become credentialed. And the last thing you want to do is to subject yourself to possible malpractice claims for the loss of property or the mismanagement or bad information. Compliance obligations are changing. Management of risk and compliance is always paramount. And so you have to be up to speed with all of the changes as well. So consider where are you getting your information from, on what basis, and how regularly are you receiving information. It's like drinking from a fire hose, 10 fire hoses at this point. And so I offer that to you as to ways that you can position yourself and have the right resources and people that you can get answers quickly, because clients are not going and customers are not going to wait around for a month or year for it to go through legal, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to have a checklist up front. You want to have internal procedures. You want to know, get as much information as possible. And that is going to lead to opportunity. Certainly to lead. You do the things that I'm talking about now and start to prepare yourself. You are literally the smartest person in the room. And you will never, ever, 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 ever feel like you know everything, but you're going to know more than most. My prayer when I would go into class, and I talk, I'm leaving. I don't know if you all received the news, but I am releasing my tenure as a full tenure professor with a co-hire appointment at Penn State Institute for Computational and Data Sciences. I'm giving it up so I can do what I'm doing with you all right now. I'm always going to be a writer, speaker, teacher, but one of the wonderful things is, and one of my prayers going into class some days, I don't know everything, but generally speaking, I know more than these students. So let's get at it. Amen. And you're going to be that same person with respect to this information. And I want to also talk about ways to go from what the problems are and what the risks are to some of the solutions. One, I'm going to put up, it's not going to be at events.proftanyaevans.com. I think that's where you register. So I'm going to put this on the resources page, but a free checklist that you can use for your clients, for internal conversation, for you as an individual to make sure, do you have all of your ducks in a row? And so in particular for crypto holders, for trust and estates folks, both in legal and financial. Shout out to CPAs and advisors, insurance brokers. This is all really important information. And as an aside, I don't have formal remarks around the insurance industry, but I think that one of the industries that will benefit the most for these changes will be the insurance industry. Finding products that will help people insure against risk of loss of their crypto holdings. And that's a whole industry, a micro industry in and of itself. And so I offer that to you as well. That could be really, really exciting. Think about what you need to know at the intersection of your area of expertise and blockchain, crypto, artificial intelligence, Web3, technologies as well. Web3 really is going from the age of information at Web2 to the age of the internet of value, in the same way that I talked about earlier. And also think about designing processes and procedures that will help you reduce risk, to increase clarity for yourself, for your colleagues, for your clients, your customers, and to evaluate your value, the value add that a professional will experience, because you know more than 98% of the people who do whatever it is you do, is very, very powerful. Because despite the fact that the value of Bitcoin went from 0 to 109,000 per coin and then dipped back down into the 80s, thank you, Lordy. I never saw a dip I didn't like. That's not legal or financial advice. But thinking about some of the real world scenarios that you want to get ahead of and be to know and to understand, to put it in context, because sometimes this can be quite academic and, but I want to put some meat on the bones here. And there was that gentleman that died without sharing the information about the keys. 750,000 equivalent in Bitcoin was lost. You have a CPA that misses staking rewards, because staking rewards and airdrops, they're all taxable. The CPA misses it and there's $42,000 in penalties. Or a lawyer fails to update the trust to have accurate information about the holdings or how to access them. And then they are sued by the heirs for negligence, right? These are all real, they're all preventable. And again, getting ahead of it and starting to ask the questions, have the checklists, so that you can focus on what you have and what then needs to be done is critically important. Talking about going from risk to readiness, I want to talk about that and kind of broke it out to crypto holders or hodlers or hodlers, or if you just hold. Secure and communicate your keys. Now, this is kind of a weird way of phrasing it, so bear with me, but securing, when you set up a new wallet, whether it is what we call a hot or warm wallet, one that is app-based or program-based and connected constantly to the internet, tends to be less safe than one that is a cold storage wallet like Ledger or Trezor, KeepKey. There are a bunch of them at this point as well. But secure and communicate your keys so that someone has access. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is if somebody has access to it, they also have access to your funds. So this becomes an exercise in trust for sure. And also for lawyers, updating legal language for digital assets, training fiduciaries on what to look for, what to ask, how to manage, and when to know that you need help is critically important as well. And then partnering with crypto competent peers. So what does it look like to have continuing education, to bring on a strategic advisor, to partner with someone who is competent in the area to advise and help you support your clients so that you keep them, but also keep your license in the process. And then certainly CPAs and advisors, the ability to track and disclose and report properly, understanding the impact of gifts in this area, staking. Crypto is taxed as a capital asset. Of course, it can generate income if it is received as payment for services, for example. And in addition to receiving it, it still is going to have its own capital gains and losses as well on sale. And so just knowing what the taxable events are, what the special rules are with respect to crypto as they continue to evolve, what tax loss harvesting looks like in crypto, which currently is not handled in the same way as stocks. You think about wash sales and things like that. I wrote recently for Forbes about tax loss harvesting. It was obviously too late for this tax season if it hadn't been done before the end of 2024, but you certainly can look at it when you buy high, you experience a loss, you sell, and then you reacquire the same amount to reset basis. Those are things that people can use, or even just, are you using high FIFO, LIFO, or HIFO, which I learned about. I didn't really know about the other category. These are all things that you have conversations about with your CPA, or if you are a CPA, the nuances and important distinctions and commonalities with other types of assets. All right. And what else do I have here that I want to talk with you about? Certainly not doing this alone. And so let me go back before I start talking about that. So some final things is that the checklist will be helpful so that you never forget things, but also just remember that any system, process that or process that you develop is something that needs to be dynamic. You have to check on this on a regular basis, because this is like the opportunity. It's like a once in a generation opportunity to literally see laws being passed, reimagined, written or rewritten in a way that has to account for not just an incremental improvement, but an exponential leap. This is why it's so challenging. And so, it's so challenging for so many people in so many different areas. Digital assets, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence are transforming everything that we do at a seismic level. That's a once in a generation impact. And so I'm excited by the opportunity to participate in that regard. But that means you have to stay up to date on the legal language for digital assets. You also, again, for CPAs and advisors, tracking and disclosing, protecting yourself with crypto engagement letters. So it'd be interesting to see both for financial professionals and for legal professionals, and in the kind of like the C-suite, what is the language around engagement letters or MOUs, or all of the language of contracts needs to appreciate the impact of digital assets and these new technologies as well. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to share with you there, and then I'm going to bring this down and see if there are any questions, comments, concerns, discussion items. You can start dropping those in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'll take a look at all of them at the same time. I want you to scan this and consider if the information that you're receiving is really beneficial and you want to take it to the next level with you and colleagues, or you and your clients, and you want to figure that out, or someone like me leaving a storied career of 17, 18 years to pivot my practice to prepare for the new economy. Maybe that's something that you would be interested in figuring out. So I'll be sharing more information about this in our last session, and then for the May 1st Q&A, when it'll be more intimate and could have greater conversation, I could share some things and go into depth. But the Web3 Ready strategy waitlist, it'll be, a hands-on kind of one-on-one with me and in small group. A lot of times people say, I want to work with you, but maybe not a group. That's fine. I like working one-on-one as well, and you could have that opportunity. So I'll share more information, but if you're able, you can scan that. 2, someone asked me, I guess I must not have talked about it last time, but From Cash to Crypto is still going strong. I'm not managing the community actively, but the on-demand version of my very successful course, From Cash to Crypto, where it all started. I started From Cash to Crypto in 2020. Shout out to those of you who have been with me. I think Anthony was on here earlier. You all might not be able to see people's names. I can't remember, but shout out to any student, former student, and certainly Advantage Evans Academy member or consulting partner. This is the way that you can definitely fast track learning, because everything sounds great for the hour that I'm before you, but maybe you want to take your time, dive in, go through each of the sections. There are 5 modules, and it keeps it at a high enough level, but also gives the breadcrumbs if you want to go deeper. So I recommend that you take a look at From Cash to Crypto, and that could be helpful as well. I wrote a little book called Digital Money Demystified. The way I describe it is, it's not going to teach you how to invest, but it will take you through and kind of right size the all of the myths and the misinformation and some disinformation. And kind of, I just want you to right size it, have the right information so that you can make the best decisions. So is crypto just for criminals? Is it only a scam? Is it a fad? Is volatility bad? Is Bitcoin or proof of work mining bad for the environment? What role does this play in the lives of anyone besides those who are male or white or whatever? This is a very egalitarian and democratizing area. And sometimes it's difficult to see that because the face of crypto that most people see is not the reality of many communities of color, over-indexing the Black community in particular, both here and throughout the diaspora, over-indexing because it's one of the few places where there are no gatekeepers, no one to redline, no one to keep you out of a job, or to all of those things don't exist with this technology. The caveat is we also don't want to see this technology co-opted by those who might do harm. And so far, this is the thing where, okay, others have it, but you can too. You have a rich and robust practice and professional life as well, and certainly as an investor moving forward. So what do? I help professionals future-proof their services and crypto holders to protect their wealth. And so if you're interested in finding out more about that, definitely go to proftanyaevans.com or just respond to any of the emails you've received from me, and we can have a further conversation about that. And then we'll see what goes on with the VIP slots. Again, only taking 5, but I'm interested in hearing what folks need and want, and then we're just gonna make that happen. So the final thing for the diagnostic, there's the wait list and the get the book. I think the last 2 would suffice. And so with that, I'm going to come off of this, and then there's Anthony. Anthony said, still here. Excellent, excellent. Good, good. I'm looking through the, I'm glad you're all so chatty. And next week when I have 2 screens and you really do this, you just wait, you won't even believe it. Let's see here. Good. All right, custodial wallets. And so there's a question in the chat that asks about custodial wallets instead of self-custodying. And that's how I understand the conversation. So if you're self-custodying as opposed to leaving all of your assets on a centralized exchange, that is most important. With that power comes much responsibility. And so making sure that you have good device hygiene, that those, that the firmware is being updated on a regular basis. You could always lose and I found out the hard way, you could always lose your hardware, but if you lose your seed words to be able to set up your account on a different device, it's game over. It is game over. So yes, I want to know where my Trezor or my Ledger, where they are. Yes, that's vitally important. If I ever lose them, however, the most important thing is to have those seed words, those 12 or 24 words usually, that you would use in order to activate your access to blockchain transactions that you've already done on a different device. So device is important, seed phrase, critically important. What we'll see with user interface and user experience is just most people are not going to sit around and do what an egghead like me and some of the eggheads here that I see in this session. Everybody's not going to sit around and do that. Everybody's not going to necessarily install MetaMask, which could be important. I've heard, I'm not going to extol the virtues of one over the other because I do want you all to find your way. But if you have questions about a particular one, and I've certainly used MetaMask, particularly when I was doing a lot in the NFT world, and that type of overlay or interface is always important. So you could have, a browser experience where you maintain control over your own keys and you are signing your own transactions. That's the most important. If you don't do that, just understand when you leave your assets on a centralized exchange in the name of having a wallet, then that could be problematic. You will see Coinbase is a good example of they have your, self-custodied wallet, but they also have their exchange, and then they also have their trading platform as well. So get to know the difference and the power of managing your own money, managing your own assets, not having to ask someone else to do that. That is critically important. Brave New World. Anthony's still here. Excellent. Estate plan is really, really important. It's about what, we spend our lives managing our property, and the idea that we would not do that and leave it up to someone else on death. Let's rethink that. Let's rethink that. Because I think what we'll find is there's a great deal of power and autonomy and authority in leaving things and people better than you found them. And that includes giving them the instructions so that people aren't in their worst time because you're no longer here trying to figure it out. And so I offer that to you as well. And one question is, how do you transact dynamically with a cold wallet? And with a cold storage wallet, you at some point are going to connect to the internet, but the idea is that you do it for the period of time when you are signing a transaction, when you're sending or receiving. Maybe there's some type of smart contract, you have to sign off. There's a whole range of things, but that you are not connected 24/7 is the point. As opposed to a browser-based wallet or an app or something of that nature. There's nothing that is 100% foolproof, but I think the point is well made about how do you connect and communicate with the blockchain and communicate those transactions. And that's kind of a discussion for another day. And even in terms of settlement on chain versus other ways that, because right now Bitcoin's not scalable. I guess we want everybody to have it, but if everybody had it, it would go so slowly and probably be so expensive. Like Bitcoin's not ready for prime time. Bitcoin's an OG. If you're a Bitcoiner, don't at me, bro, but you know it too. You know it. We're working on scaling solutions. We have all sorts of, we have Lightning, and yeah, I get it. But it's, the transactions, when you compare it to swiping a Visa or MasterCard or some of the others, it pales in comparison. Let's keep it real. Let's be honest. But we are witnessing the beginnings of that. Every nascent industry and asset class has a rough ride in the beginning, and it finds its way. And that's why I'm so encouraged about the fact that you're here, the fact that we're having this conversation, the fact that you're plugged in and really care about what role you play personally and professionally, where we are, and how proud your future self will be that you spent the time doing what you're doing right now on just a random Thursday night. Right. So I see that we are fast coming up at the top of the hour. If I missed anything, let me make sure that I didn't miss. We gave the worksheet out. I'm going to jump back in and make sure that the post-session email will go out as it should. Wait a minute. Let me see. I have 2 Q&As. There we go. Oh, so the terms that I want you to, there are a few terms, actually. Let me do this. I'm going to answer. So what are the terms that you all should be looking up for homework? And so I'm going to put, we're throwing around cold storage. So I'm going to put that in, hot wallet, cold wallet. We talked about bit bonds. We didn't really take a deep dive, but early on, I talked about the Treasury Department discussing whether or not it might issue Bitcoin-backed Treasury bonds, which is fascinating. And it's fascinating for many reasons, because I've been fighting for a long time. I testified before Congress talking about the benefits to marginalized communities and the importance of moving forward globally with respect to this technology. And here we are. It's like slowly and then suddenly, right? So bonds will be quite interesting. Well, I'm writing these all in, and then I will send it. So you all hear me saying what I'm writing and you don't see it yet. I'm thinking of some of the other terms. Oh, yes. Private key, public key, but I don't want you to get too crazy with that, because again, most good user experiences are not going to require you to actively manage your public and private keys. This is something that I definitely talk about in Digital Money Demystified, and also on the video, in the video library on YouTube. So definitely go there and start to take a deep dive. What I'll also do after this is add to our resource page one of my favorite glossaries. So as you're listening and then watching this over again or going through the worksheet, you can take a look through the glossary of terms. Something I do with financial data. I didn't grow up focusing, I'm not a finance person. I'm not a tech person, actually, but, and I'll sit and watch CNBC. I'm much better now because I'm an active investor. But when I first turned on CNBC, for example, I didn't know what was going on. Well, I knew some of, I went to Northwestern, I took macroeconomics. I don't know that I did particularly well, but you want to learn the language. Just imagine, that you're going on this great adventure in another country and they speak a totally different language, but it's a fabulous place to be. You're going to have to take your time and be patient with yourself. If I can do this, my parents can do this. I guarantee you can do this as well. And if I think of any other terms that would be particularly important from this session, I'll include that when I email you all. Okay, let's see. All right, going back over here. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any comments, questions, discussion items for the good of the group? I think that was good. We got a lot into 60 minutes. Next week is our final webinar, and then we have the Q&A and the training session. I'll send that out. It'll be if you're already a client, it's free. If you're a lifetime from Cash Your Crypto member, free. There'll be a low ticket price for the more formal session. Next week is part of this series as well. Tell a friend, tell 3 friends, because we want to make sure that we are empowering. There's no gatekeeping. I'm doing my level best to get you the information that you need so that you can go out there and make good choices. All right. Take care. Be good to yourself and others. And I will see you next week. All right. Take care.